Welcome to the Political Checkmate, and today I am making the final part of this four-part series defending Charlie Kirk's gun argument, that owning a gun is worth it. The last few weeks I have checkmated TYT, Watchlist, and the Majority Report, and today I'm going to checkmate David Pakman's correspondent, Luke Beasley's video, Charlie Kirk, gun violence is worth it. So let's see if Luke Beasley has completely debunked the argument, so here we go.
Right-wing media figure and founder of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, has, I guess you would say, been more transparent on his stance on gun violence than other right-wingers are willing to be, clarified what he thinks we should, and more importantly to him, shouldn't be doing when it comes to gun violence, addressing gun violence with common sense solutions. And as you're about to watch, he thinks the devastation we experience in this country, unique to this country when comparing us to other developed nations, is worth it. He thinks it's worth it because of his distorted view of this whole.
Charlie Kirk's gun argument was that gun violence does not justify taking guns away if guns bring more benefits than cost. After all, there are more than 1 million defensive gun uses, and it deters criminals. And also on gun violence comparisons with other nations, a 2011 study has shown gun availability does not drive gun homicides, rather it is socioeconomic and cultural differences. And also, I would like to point out that you can still find gun homicides in some of these developed countries, and also people are still going to murder you if they want to, with or without a gun.
Conversation. Take a look.
Now we must also be real. We must be honest with the population. Having an armed citizenry comes with a price. And that is part of liberty.
Wow.
Driving comes with a price. 50,000 people die on the road every year.
Wow.
That's a price. You get rid of driving, you'd have 50,000 less auto fatalities. But we have decided that the benefit of driving, speed, accessibility, mobility, having products, services, is worth the cost of 50,000 people dying on the road.
Wow.
So we need to be very clear that you're not going to get gun deaths to zero. It will not happen.
Right.
You can significantly reduce them through having more fathers in the home,
Yes.
by having more.
We'll watch more of this clip, but to respond to what he's already said, if you want to make guns like cars, I'm down to do that. That's what I want to do. The same, as extensive, if not more, process to license someone, make sure that they have the proper training, understanding, and mental stability to have a weapon that can do so much damage. And they do this often. What, cars kill a lot of people, or a lot of people die in car wrecks. Are you saying ban cars? No, they're heavily regulated for that reason. And we've seen deaths by car decrease significantly as we've increased significantly regulation. So yes, let's do it. But Charlie Kirk's not for that. So don't be bringing up cars like that's some point, because that's exactly what people on the side of common sense gun control are calling for, implementing systems to make sure people can't just willy-nilly get so many guns, and people who shouldn't have guns can get them, and all of that. Continuing.
Regulating cars to guns would not actually decrease gun violence, rather it would actually liberalize gun ownership. After all, you can buy a car without a license, but you need it for the public roads. Your state driver's license can be used in different states. I don't think a license would really reduce gun violence, because it would make the shooter more skilled at killing, and also 90% of criminals got their guns illegally. I also don't think car regulation reduced deaths by cars, because cars are getting more safer, and also people are driving less because of gas prices, and also people are drinking less. On the sensible gun control argument, in part 2, I have checkmated our argument by showing that people are selective on common sense, because since when have they ever advocated for gun permit holders to be freely able to bring their guns across state lines? And also, it is common sense that criminals won't follow these rules.
Armed guards in front of schools. We should have an honest and clear reductionist view of gun violence, utopian one. You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's drivel. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational. Nobody talks like this. They live in a complete alternate universe. Sure. So then how do you reduce? Very simple. People say, oh, Charlie, how do you stop school shootings? I don't know. How did we stop shootings at baseball games? Because we have armed guards outside of baseball games. That's why. How did we stop all the shootings at airports? We have armed guards outside of airports. How do we stop all the shootings at banks? We have armed guards outside of banks.
There was just a shooting at a bank, so. And people are fully willing to have security on the campus of schools. Now, getting to the point when I hear some right-wingers talk about their ideal school situation where it feels like a prison is terrifying to go, I'm not on board with that. But having an armed security guard on campus, perfectly fine. And also, that armed security guard, unless you have an army, is not going to be able to fend off someone, in many cases, walking up with a weapon of war. We saw in Uvalde a team of police officers, countless officers, and they weren't willing to enter the room as they should have because of the weapon. They were saying there's an AR-15, there's an AR-15 that the shooter had. So yes, let's have security. Let's have locked doors. Let's also not make the environment one that's terrifying to go to. And as other countries do, let's reasonably regulate firearms.
The bank I believe he is talking about is the Old National Bank shooting, and that is a gun-free zone because page 37 of the Old National Bank team member handbook states that you can get fired if you bring a gun into the bank. That makes sense because 94% of mass shootings happen at gun-free zones, and I don't care if people feel terrified about security because that is a subjective feeling. What actually matters is if the security actually works. According to the FBI study of lone offender terrorism from 1972 to 2015 has shown that 79% of offenders targeted people at places with no security or minimal security, whereas just security cameras. On Uvalde, I want to ask you this question. Who is going to protect us from criminals if the police are not going to help us and they have no duty to protect us? The good guy with a gun are not the police, but individuals doing a defensive action. I would also like to point out that the police in Uvalde stopped people from entering the building to stop the shooter, such as Cody Brees and all. When he got his gun and tried to enter the school to stop the shooter, but the police stopped him. On school shootings in general, there's a study from John Lott that has shown that there has been 0 school shootings where a teacher was armed.
How do we stop all the shootings at gun shows? Notice there's not a lot of mass shootings at gun shows. There's all these guns because everyone's armed.
My goodness. Just the laughing at the point of, quote, worth it. That's the words that Charlie Kirk has for dead kids. Worth it. Because he thinks that we need weapons of war because maybe he'll be able to have some Rambo moment against the government. It's not going to happen. If in some situation, very hypothetically, we were, experiencing a tyrannical government where we're going to have to go to war with them, if the military is on the side of that tyrannical government, they win. It's over. They have the military drones. They have the missiles. They have all the different things. We're not going to win with even your AR-15. And so to choose that because you like the idea of this hypothetical where you're some action figure over the lives of children, to me, is sick.
On the military argument, tell me, why doesn't the government send a nuke to the protesters here in the United States? The reason why the government would not nuke their own country is because it would ruin the economy, which would drain the power of the government. After all, the Young Turks stripped the Armenian gun ownership so they could murder them. I got to say, what Charlie Kirk means by worth is a bit of a utilitarian argument that guns bring more value than cost. and that is why we should not get rid of guns. A good example of a utilitarian argument is that sacrificing one person to save 100 lives would be worth it, but not the ideal scenario that a person needs to be sacrificed to save more people instead of saving everyone. And also, Charlie Kirk has stated he wants to reduce gun violence, such as having more security. Not at all a random kid dies and just ignore, rather believes that your solution won't work and cause more problems, and that his solution would be a better comeback to that problem. This is the end of the video. Thank you for watching, and please donate to my Patreon so I can make more videos and have your video requests checkmated.